Travel can be very difficult in a marriage, especially if you're traveling very far indeed. Space Jockey by Robert Heinlin. Read by Karl. Just as they were leaving, the telephone called his name. Don't answer it, she pleaded. We'll miss the curtain. Who is it? He called out. The viewplate lighted. He recognized Olga Pierce, and behind her the Colorado Springs office of Trans-Lunar Transit. Calling Mr. Pemberton. Calling... Oh, it's you, Drake. You're on. Flight 27. Super New York to Space Terminal. Have a copter pick you up in 20 minutes. How come, he protested? I'm fourth down on the call board. You were fourth down. Then you're standby pilot to Hicks, and he just got a psycho down check. Hicks got psychoed? That's silly. Happens to the best, chum. Be ready. Bye now. His wife was twisting $16 worth of waste handkerchiefs to a shapeless mess. Jake, this is ridiculous. For 3 months I haven't seen enough of you to know what you look like. Sorry, kid. Take Helen to the show. Oh, Jake, I don't care about the show. I wanted to get you where they couldn't reach you for once. They would have called me at the theater. Oh, no. I want the record you left. Phyllis, are you trying to get me fired? Don't look at me that way. She waited, hoping he would speak, regarding the side issue and wondering how to tell him that her own frustration was caused not by disappointment, but by gnawing worry for his safety every time he went into space. She went on desperately. You don't have to take this fight, darling. You better nurse less than a time limit. Please, Jake. He was peeling off his tux. I've told you 1,000 times. Pilot doesn't get a regular run by playing space war with the rule book. Wiping out my follow-up message. Why'd you do it, Phyllis? Trying to ground me? No, darling, but I thought just this once. Well, they offered me a flight. I take it. He walked swiftly out of the room. He came back 10 minutes later, dressed for space and apparently in good humor. He was whistling. He broke off when he saw her face and said his mouth, Where's my coverall? I'll get it. Let me fix you something to eat. You know I can't take high acceleration on a full stomach. I'll buy you $30 to lift another pound. Just as he was, in shorts, singlet, sandals, and pocket belt, he was already good for about minus 50 pounds in weight bonus. She started to tell him the weight penalty on a sandwich and a cup of coffee didn't matter to them. There was just one more possible cause for misunderstanding. Neither of them said much until the taxi cab clumped onto the roof. He kissed her goodbye and told her not to come outside. She obeyed until she heard the helicopter take off. Then she climbed to the roof and watched it out of sight. The traveling public gripes at the lack of direct Earth-to-Moon service, but it takes 3 types of rocket ships and 2 space station changes to make a fiddly 250,000-mile jump for a good reason. Money. The Commerce Commission has set the charges for the present 3 stays left from here to the moon at $30 a pound. Would direct service be cheaper? A ship designed to blast off from Earth, make an airless landing on the moon, return and make an atmosphere landing, will be so cluttered up with heavy special equipment used only once in the trip, it cannot show a profit at $1,000 a pound. Imagine combining a ferry boat, a subway train, and an express elevator. So Translunar uses rocket space for catapulting, and wing for landing on Earth, to make the terrific lift from Earth to our satellite station, Super New York. The long-winded lap, from there to where space terminal circles the moon, calls for comfort, but no landing gear. The Flying Dutchman and the Philip Nolan never land. They were even assembled in space. They resemble winged rockets like the Sky Sprite and the Firefly, as little as a Pullman train resembles a parachute. The Moonbat and the Gremlin are good only for the jump from Space Terminal down to Luna. No wings, cocoon-like acceleration and crash helmets, fractional controls on their enormous jets. The changeover points will not have to be more than air-conditioned tanks. Of course, Space Terminal is quite a city, what with the Mars and Venus traffic, but even today, Super New York is still rather primitive, hardly more than a shilling point in a restaurant waiting room. It's only been the past 5 years it has even been equipped to offer the comfort of one gravity centrifuge service to passengers with queasy stomachs. Pemberton weighed in at the spaceport office, then hurried off to where the Sky Sprite stood cratered on the catapult. He shucked off his coverall, shivered as he handed it to the gate man, and ducked inside. He went to his acceleration hammock and went to sleep. The lift to Super New York was not his worry. His job was deep space. He woke at the surge of the catapult and the nerve-tingling rush at the face of Pite's Peak. When the Sky Sprite went into free flight, flung straight up above the peak, Pemberton held his breath. If the rocket jets failed to fire, the ground space pilot must try to wrestle into a guide and bring her down on her wings. The rocket roared on time. Jake went back to sleep. When the Sky Sprite locked in with Trooper New York, Pemberton went to the station's stellar navigation room. He was pleased to find Shorty Weinstein, the computer, on duty. Jake trusted Shorty's computation. A good thing when your ship, your passengers, and your own skin depend thereon. Pemberton had to be a better-than-average mathematician himself in order to be a pilot. His own limited talent made him appreciate the genius of those who computed the orbits. Hot pilot Pemberton, the scourge of the spaceways. Hi. Weinstein handed him a sheet of paper. Jake looked at it and looked amazed. Hey, Shorty, you made a mistake. Me? Impossible. Mabel can't make mistakes. Weinstein gestured at the huge aggregation computer filling the far room. You made a mistake. You gave me an easy fix. Vega, Antari, these Regulus. Make things easier for the pilot, and your guild will chuck you out. Weinstein looked sheepish but pleased. I think I had on a blast time for 17 hours. I could have taken the morning freight. Jake's thoughts went back to Phyllis. You wouldn't cancel the morning trip. Oh. Jake shut up, for he knew Weinstein knew as little as he did. Perhaps the fight would have passed too close to an A-bomb rocket, circling the globe like a policeman. The General Staff Security Council did not give information about the top secrets guarding the peace of the planet. Pemberton shrugged. Well, if I'm asleep, call me 3 hours minus. Right, your tape will be ready. While he slept, the Flying Dutchman nosed gently into her ship, sealed the airlocks of the station, discharged passengers and freight from Luna City. When he woke, her holes were filling, her fuel replenished, and passengers boarding. He stopped by the post office radio desk, looking for a letter from Phyllis. Finding none, he told himself she would have had sent it to the terminal. He went to the restaurant, bought the facsimile Herald Tribune, and settled down grimly to enjoy the comics and his breakfast. After reporting to the captain, he went to the control room, floating and pulling himself along by the hand grips. He buckled himself into the pilot's chair and started his check-off. Captain Kelly drifted in and took the other chair as Pemberton was finishing his checking runs in the ballistic tracker. Have a camel, Jake. I'll take a rain check. He continued. Kelly watched him with a slight frown. Like captains and pilots on Mark Twain's Mississippi, and for the same reasons, a spaceship captain bosses his crew, his ship, his cargo, and his passengers, but the pilot is the final, legal, and unquestioned boss of how the ship is handled from blastoff to the end of the trip. A captain may turn down a given pilot, nothing more. Kelly fingered a slip of paper tucked in his pouch and turned over his mind the words which the company psychiatrist on duty had handed to him. I've given this pilot clearance, Captain, but you need not accept it. Pemberton is a good man. What's wrong? The psychiatrist thought over what he observed while posing as a silly tourist bothering a stranger at breakfast. He's a little more antisocial than his past record shows. Something on his mind. Whatever it is, he can tolerate for the present. Keep an eye on him. Kelly answered. You go along with him as pilot? If you wish. Don't bother. I'll take him. No need to lift a deadhead. Pemberton fed Weinstein's tape into the robot pilot, then turned to Kelly. Control ready, sir. Blast when ready, pilot. Kelly felt relieved when he heard himself make the irrevocable decision. Pemberton signaled the station to cast loose. The great ship was nudged out by an expanding pneumatic ram until she swam in space 1,000 feet away, secured by a single line. He turned the ship to his blast-off direction by causing a flywheel, mounted gimbals on the ship's center of gravity, to spin rapidly. The ship spun slowly in the opposite direction, by grace of Newton's third law of motion. Guided by the tape, the robot pilot tilted prisms of the pilot's periscope so that Vega, Antares, and Regulus would shine as one image when the ship was headed right. Pemberton nursed the ship to that heading, fussily. A mistake of 1 minute of arc here made 200 miles at destination. When the three images made a pinpoint, he stopped the freewheels and locked in the gyros. He checked the heading of his ship by direct observation of each of the stars, just as a saltwater skipper uses a sextant, but with incomparably more accurate instruments. That's not another thing about the correctness of the course, Weinstein had ordered. He had to take that as gospel. But he assured them that the robot and the tape were behaving as planned. Satisfied, they cast off the last line. 7 minutes to go. Pemberton flipped the switch permitting the robot pilot to blast away when its clock told it to. He waited, hands poised over the menu controls, ready to take over if the robot failed. He felt the old, inescapable, sick excitement building inside him. Even as adrenaline poured into him, stretching his time sense, throbbing in his ears, his mind kept turning back to Phyllis. He admitted she had a kick coming. Spacemen shouldn't marry. Not that she'd starve if he messed up a landing, but a gal doesn't want insurance. She wants a husband. Minus 6 minutes. If he got a regular run, she could live in space terminal. No good. I had a woman at space terminal went bad. Oh, Phyllis wouldn't become a tramp or a rum bum. She'd just go in bats. 5 minutes more. He didn't care much for space terminal himself, nor for space. The romance of interplanetary travel looked well in print, but he knew what it was. A job, monotony, no scenery, bursts of work, tedious waits, no home life. Why didn't he get a decent job and stay home nights? He knew, because he was a space jockey and too old to change. What chance does a 30-year-old married man use to import money to change his racket for minutes? He looked good trying to sell helicopters on commission now, wouldn't he? Maybe he could buy a piece of irrigated land and be your age, chum. He knows as much about farming as a cow knows about Q brute. Now, he'd made his bed when he picked rockets during his training hitch. If he'd bucked for the electronics branch or taken a GI scholarship, do wait now. Straight for the service into Harriman's lunar exploitations, hopping ore on Luna. That had torn it. How's it going, Doc? Kelly's voice was edgy. Minus 2 minutes, 7 seconds. Damnation. Kelly knew better than to talk to the pilot on minus time. He caught a last look through the periscope. Antares seemed to have drifted. He unclasped the gyro, tilted and spun the flywheel, braked it savagely to a stop a moment later. The image was again a pinpoint. He could not explain what he did. It was virtuosity, exact juggling beyond textbook and classroom. 20 seconds. Across the chronometer's face, beads of light trickled the seconds away while he tensed, ready to fire by hand, or even to disconnect and refuse to trip if his judgment told him to. A too cautious decision might cause Lloyd's to cancel his bond. A reckless decision could cost his license, or even his life, and others. But he was not thinking of underwriters and licenses, nor even of lives. In truth, he was not thinking at all. He was feeling his ship, as if his nerve ends extended at every part of her. 5 seconds. The safety disconnect clicked out. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1. He was stabbing at the hand fire button when the roar hit him. Kelly relaxed to the pseudo-gravity of the blast and watched. Pemberton was soberly busy, scanning dials, noting time, checking his progress by radar bounced off Super New York. Weinstein's figures, robot pilot, the ship itself, all were clicking together. Minutes later, the critical instant neared when the robot should cut the jets. Pemberton poised a finger over the hand cutoff while splitting his attention among radar scope, accelerometer, periscope, and chronometer. One instant they were roaring along in the jets. The next split second the ship was in free orbit, plunging silently towards the moon. So perfectly matched for human and robot that Pemberton himself did not know which had cut the power. He glanced again at the board and unbuckled. How about that cigarette, Captain? And you can let your passengers unstrap. No co-pilot is needed in space, and most pilots would rather share a toothbrush than the control room. The pilot works about an hour at blast-off, button stable for contact, and loafs during free flight, save for routine checks and corrections. Pemberton prepared to spend 104 hours eating, writing, reading letters, and sleeping, especially sleeping. When the alarm woke him, he checked the ship's position and wrote to his wife. Phyllis, my dear, if and I don't blame you for being upset at missing your night out. I was disappointed too. But bear with me, darling. I should be on a regular run before long. In less than 10 years, I'll be up for retirement, and you can have a chance to catch up on bridge and golf and things like that. I know it's pretty hard to. The voice circuit cut in. Oh, Jake, put on your company face. I'm bringing visitors to the control room. No visitors, Captain. Now, Jake, this one case is a letter from Old Man Herman himself. Every possible courtesy and so on. Pemberton thought quickly. You can refuse, but there's no sense in offending the big boss. Okay, Captain, make it short. The visitor was a man, jovial, oversized. Uh, Jake figured in for an 80-pound weight penalty. Behind him, a 13-year-old male counterpart came zipping through the door and lunged for the control console. Pemberton snagged him by the arm and forced himself to speak pleasantly. Just hang on to that bracket, youngster. I don't want you to bump your head. Let go of me. Pop, it may not let go. Kelly cut in. I think you'd best hang on, Judge. Oh, very well. Do as the captain says, Junior. Ah, gee, Pop. Judge Shot, this is First Pilot Pemberton, Kelly said rapidly. He'll show you around. Glad to know you, Pilot. What would you like to see, Judge? Jake said carefully. Oh, this and that. It's for the boy, his first trip. I'm an old space hand myself, probably more hours than half your crew. He laughed. Pemberton did not. There's not much to see in free flight. Quite all right. We'll just make ourselves at home. Hey, Captain? I want to sit in the control seat, Shot Jr. announced. Pemberton winced. Kelly said urgently, Jake, would you mind outlining the control system for the boy? Then we'll go. Pemberton grabbed him, steered him in the pilot's chair, and strapped him in. He then flipped the board's disconnect. What you doing? I cut off powers to the control so I can explain them. Ain't you going to fire the jets? No. Jake started a rapid description of the use and purpose of each button, dial, switch, meter gimmick, and scope. Junior squirmed. How about meteors, he demanded. Oh, that. Maybe one collision in 500,000 Earth trips. Meteors are scarce. So what? So you hit the jackpot. You're in the soup. Not at all. The anti-collision radar guides all directions 500 miles out. If anything holds a steady burning for 3 seconds, a direct hookup starts the jets. First, a warning gong so everybody can grab something solid. Then 1 second later, boom. We get out of here fast. Judge Shot would like to know. From the corner of his eye, Jake saw the boy reach for the board. He turned, started to shout. Accelerator caught him while the jets roared in his ear. An all space hand can usually recover catlight, an unexpected change from weightlessness to acceleration. But Jake was grabbing for the boy instead of for anchorage. He fell back and down, twisted to avoid Shot, banged his head on the frame of the open airtight door below, and fished up on the next deck, out cold. Kelly was shaking him. You all right, Jake? He sat up. Yeah, sure. He began with the thunder, the shivering deck plates. The jets! Cut the power! He shoved Kelly inside and swarmed over the control room, jabbed at the cutoff button. In sudden ringing silence, they were again weightless. Jake turned, a strapped Shot Jr. and hustled him to Kelly. Captain, please remove this menace from my control room. Lego, Pop is going to hurt me. The older Shot bristled at once. What's the meaning of this? Let go of my son. Your precious son cut in the jets. Junior, did you do that? The boy shifted his eyes. No, Pop, it was a meteor. Shot looked puzzled. Pemberton snorted. I just had told him how the radar guard can blast to miss a meteor. He's lying. Shot ran through the process he called making up his mind and answered, Junior never lies. Shame on you, a grown man, to try to put the blame on a helpless boy. I shall report you, sir. Come, Junior. Jake grabbed his arm. Captain, I want to control his photographs for fingerprints before this man leaves the room. It was not a meteor. The controls were dead, and this boy switched them on. Furthermore, the anti-collision circuit sounds an alarm. Shot looked worried. This is ridiculous. I simply objected to the slur on my son's character. No harm has been done. No harm, eh? How about broken arms or necks? And wasted fuel, with more to waste before we're back in the groove. Do you know, Mr. Old Space Hound, Just now precious a little fuel will be when we try to match orbits with Space Terminal, if we haven't got it. We may have to dump cargo to save the ship. Cargo like $60,000 a ton on freight charges alone. Fingerprints will show the Commerce Commission who to nick for it. When they were alone again, Kelly asked anxiously, "You won't really have to jettison? You've got a maneuvering reserve. Maybe we can't even get to terminal. How long did she blast?" Kelly shook his head. I was woozy myself. We'll open the accelerograph and take a look. Kelly brightened. "Oh, sure. If the rats didn't wait too much, we just swing ship and blast back the same length of time." Jay shook his head. "You forgot to change mass ratio. Under power, the ship lost the weight of fuel burned. The thrust remains constant. The mass it pushed shrank. Getting back to proper position, course, and speed became a complicated problem in the calculus of ballistics. But you can do it, can't you?" "I'll have to. But I sure wish I had Weinstein here." Kelly left to see about his passengers. Jake got to work. He took the situation by astronomical observation and by radar. Barrett gave him all three factors quickly, but with limited accuracy. Sights taken of sun, moon, and earth gave him position, but told nothing of course in speed at that time. Nor could he afford to wait to take a second group of sights for the purpose. Dad reckoning gave him an estimated situation by adding Weinstein's predictions to the calculated effects of young shots meddling. This checked very well with the radar and visual observations, but still he had no notion of whether or not he could get back in the groove and reach his destination. It was now necessary to calculate what it would take and whether or not the remaining fuel would be enough to break his speed and match orbits. In space, it does no good to reach your journey's end if you flash on past it miles per second, or even crawling along at a few hundred miles per hour. To catch an egg on a plate, don't bump. He started doggedly to work to calculate how to do it using the least fuel, but his little Martian electronic calculator was no match for the tons of IBM computer at Super New York, nor was he Weinstein. 3 hours later, he had an answer of sorts. He called Kelly. "Captain, you can start by jettisoning the shot in the sun." "I'd like to. No way out, Jake?" "I can't promise to get your ship in safely without dumping. Better dump now before we blast. It's cheaper." Kelly hesitated. He would cheerfully lose a leg. "Give me time to pick up what to dump." "Okay." Pemberton returned tightly to his figures, hoping to find a saving mistake, then thought better of it. He called the radio room. "Get me Weinstein at Super New York. Out of normal range." "I know that. This is the pilot. Safety priority. Urgent. Get a tight beam on them and nurse it." Aye, aye, sir. I'll try." Weinstein was doubtful. "Cripes, Jake, I can't pilot you. Damn it, you can work problems for me. What good is 7-place accuracy with bum data?" Sure. But you know what instruments I've got. You know about how well I can handle them. Give me a better answer." "I'll try." Weinstein called back 4 hours later. "Jake, here's the dope. You plan to blast back to match your predicted speed, then made site corrections for position. Orthodox, but uneconomical. Instead, I had Mabel solve it as one maneuver. Good. Not so fast. It saves fuel, but not enough. You can't possibly get back in your old groove and then match terminal without dumping." Pemberton let it sink in and said, "I'll tell Kelly." "Wait a minute, Jake. Try this. Start from scratch." "Huh?" "Peters has a brand new problem. Forget about the orbit on your tape. With the present course, speed, and position, compute the cheapest orbit to match with terminals. Pick a new groove." Pemberton felt foolish. I never thought of that. "Of course not. With the ship's little one-long calculator, it'll take you 3 weeks to solve it. You set to record?" "Sure." "Here's your data." Weinstein started calling it off. When they checked it, Jake said, "Did it get me there?" "Maybe. If the data you gave me is up to your level of accuracy, if you can follow instructions exactly as a robot, if you can blast off and make contact so precisely you don't need the site corrections, then you just might squeeze home. Maybe. Good luck anyhow." The wavering reception muffled their goodbyes. Jake signaled Kelly. "Don't jettison, Captain. Have your passengers strapped down. Stand by the blast. Minus 14 minutes. Very well, pilot. The new departure made and checked, he again had time to spare. He took out his unfinished letter, read it, and tore it up. Dearest Phyllis, he started again, I've been doing some hard thinking this trip and decided that I've just been stubborn. What am I doing way out here? I like my home. I'd like to see my wife. Why should I risk my neck and your peace of mind to herd junk through the sky? Why hang around a telephone waiting to chaperone fatheads to the moon? Numbskulls who couldn't pilot a rowboat and should have stayed at home in the first place. Money, of course. I've been afraid to risk a change. I won't find another job that'll pay me half as well, but if you're game, I'll ground myself and I'll start over. All my love, Jake. He put it away and went to sleep, considering that an entire troop of junior rocketeers had been quartered in his control room. The close-up view of the moon is second only to the space-side view of Earth as a tourist attraction. Nevertheless, Pemberton insisted that all passengers strapped down during the swing around the terminal. With precious little fuel for the matching maneuver, he refused to hobble his movements to please sightseers. Around the bulge of the moon, terminal came into sight, by radar only, for the ship was tail foremost. After each short braking blast, Pemberton got a new radar fix. They completed his approach with a curve he had plotted from Weinstein's figures, with one eye on the time, another on the scope, a third on the plot, and a fourth on his fuel gauges. Well, Jake, Kelly frowned. Did we make it? How should I know? You be ready to dump. They agreed on liquid oxygen as a cargo to dump, since it would wet boil out through the outer valves without handling. Don't say it, Jake. Damn it, I wonder if I don't have to. He was fingering his controls again. The blast chopped off his words. When it stopped, the radio maneuvering circuit was calling him. Fine Dutchman, pilot speaking, Jake shouted back. To terminal control. Super reports you short on fuel. Right. Don't approach. Match speeds outside us. We'll send a transfer ship to refuel you and pick up passengers. I think I can make it. Don't try it. Wait for refueling. Quit telling me how to pilot my ship. Pemberton slipped off the circuit and stared at the board, whistling morosely. Kelly froze on the words in his mind. Casey said to the fireman, Boy, you better jump, 'cause two locomotives are going to bump. You going to slip anyway, Jake? Now I'll blast it. I can't take a chance of caving in the center terminal, not with passengers aboard. But I'm not going to match speeds 50 miles outside and wait for a piggyback. He aimed for a near miss just outside terminal's orbit, climbing by instinct, for Weinstein's figures meant nothing by now. His aim was good. He didn't have to waste his hoarded fuel on last-minute side corrections to keep him hitting terminal. When at last he was sure his sliding safe line passed if unchecked, he braked once more. As he started to cut the power, the jets coughed, sputtered, and quit. The Flying Dutchman floated in space 500 miles outside terminal. Speeds matched. Jake switched on the radio. Terminal, stand by for my line. I'll warp her in. He had filed his report, showered, and was headed for the post office to radio study his letter when the bullhorn summoned him to the Commodore pilot's office. Uh-oh, he told himself. Shaw just kicked the brass. Wonder just how much stock that Bliffy owns. And there's that other matter. I'm getting snotty with control. He reported stiffly. First pilot, Pemberton, sir. Commodore Soames looked up. Pemberton, oh yes. You hold 2 ratings, space to space and airless landing. Let's not stall around, Jake told himself. Aloud he said, I have no excuses for anything this last trip. If the Commodore does not approve the way I run my control room, he may have my resignation. What are you talking about? Well, don't you have a passenger complaint on me? Oh, that, Soames brushed it aside. Yes, he's been here, but I was his report too. And your chief jetman's, and a special from Supra, New York. That was crack piloting, Pemberton. You mean there's no beef on the company? What if I failed to back up my pilots? You were perfectly right. I would have stuffed them out the airlock. Let's get down to business. You're on the space-to-space board, but I want to send a special to Luna City. Will you take it as a favor to me? Pemberton hesitated. Soames went on. The oxygen you saved is for the Cosmic Research Project. They blew the seals on the North Tunnel and lost tons of the stuff. The work is stopped. About $130,000 a day in overhead wages and penalties. The gremlin is here, but no pilot until the moonbat gets in, except you. Well? But look, commuter, you can't risk people's nets on a jet landing of mine. I'm resting. I need a refresher and a checkout. No passengers, no crew, your captain. Your neck alone. I'll take her. 38 minutes later, with the ugly, powerful hull of the gremlin around him, he blasted away. One strong shove to kill her orbital speed and let her fall towards the moon. Then no more worries until it came time to ride her down in her tail. He felt good until he held out 2 letters, the one he had failed to send and one from Phyllis, delivered at terminal. The letter from Phyllis was affectionate and superficial. She did not mention his sudden departure. She ignored his profession completely. The letter was a model of correctness, but it worried him. He tore up both letters and started again. Said in part, "Never said so outright, but you resent my job. I have to work to support us. You've got a job too. It's an old job women have been doing a long time. Crossing the plains in covered wagons, waiting for ships to come back from China, or running around a minehead after an explosion. Kissing goodbye with a smile and take care of him at home. You married a spaceman, so part of your job is to accept my job cheerfully. I think you can do it when you realize it. I hope so. The way things have been going won't do for either of us. Believe me, I love you. Jake." He brooded on it until time to bend the ship down for his approach. For 20 miles altitude down to 1 mile, he let the robot breaker, then shifted to manual while still flowing slowly. A perfect airless landing would be the reverse of the takeoff of a war rocket. Free fall, then one last blast of the jets, ending with the ship stopped dead as she touches the ground. In practice, a pilot must feel his way down, not too slowly. A ship could burn all the fuel this side of Venus fighting gravity too long. 40 seconds later, falling a little more than 140 miles per hour, he picked up at his periscopes the 1,000-mile static towers. At 300 feet, he blasted 5 gravities for more than a second, cut it, and caught it with 1/6 gravity. Moon the normal blast. Slowly he eased this off, feeling happy. The gremlin hovered, her bright jet splashed into the soil of the moon, then settled with dignity, the land without a jar. The ground crew took over. Sue ran about, jeeped Pemberton to the tunnel entrance. Inside Luna City, he found himself paged before he finished filing his report. When he took the call, someone smiled at him from the viewplate. "I saw that landing from the field pickup, Pemberton. You don't need a refresher course." Jake blushed. "Thank you, sir. Unless you are dead set on space to space, I can use you on the regular Luna City run. Quarters here or Luna City. Want it?" Heard himself saying, "Luna City. I'll take it." He tore up his third letter as he walked into the Luna City post office. At the telephone desk, he spoke to a blonde in a blue moon suit. "Get me Mrs. Jake Pemberton, suburb 6403, Dodge City, Kansas, please." She looked him over. "You pilots sure spend money. Sometimes phone calls are cheap. Hurry it, will you?" Phyllis was trying to phrase the letter she felt she should have written before. It was easier to say in writing she was not complaining about loneliness or lack of fun, but she could not stand the strain of worrying about his safety. But then she found herself quite unable to state the logical conclusion. Would she prefer to face giving up entirely if he would not give up space? She surely did not know. The phone call was a welcome interruption. The viewplate stayed blank. "Long distance," came a thin voice. "Luna City calling." Fear jerked at her heart. Phyllis Pemberton speaking. An interminable delay. She knew it took nearly 3 seconds for radio waves to make the Earth-Moon round trip, but she didn't remember, and it would have not have reassured her. All she could see was a broken home, herself a widow, and Jake, beloved Jake, dead in space. "Mrs. Jake Pemberton?" Yes, go ahead." Another wait. Had she sent him away in a bad temper, reckless, his judgment affected? Had he died out there, remembering only she had fussed at him for leaving her to go to work? Had she failed him when he needed her? She knew that her Jake could not be tied to apron strings. Men, grown-up men, not mama's boys, had to break away from mother's apron strings. Then why did she try to tie him to hers? She had known better. Her own mother had warned her not to try it. She prayed. Then another voice, one that weakened her knees with relief. That you, honey? Yes, darling, yes. What are you doing on the moon? It's a long story. $1 it will keep. What I want to know is, are you willing to come to Luna City? It was Jake's turn to suffer from the inevitable lag in reply. He wondered if Phyllis was stalling, unable to make up her mind. At last he heard her say, Of course, darling, when will I leave? When... Say, don't you even want to know why? She started to say it didn't matter, then said, Yes, tell me. The lag was still present, but neither of them cared. He told them the news and added, Run over to the springs and get Olga Pierce to straighten out the red tape for you. Need my help to pack? She thought rapidly. Had he meant to come back anyway, he would not have asked. No, I can manage. Good girl. I'll really text you a long letter about what to bring and so forth. I love you. Bye now. Oh, I love you too. Goodbye, darling. Pemberton came out of the booth, whistling. Good girl, Phyllis. Staunch. He wondered why he had ever doubted her. The end.